Okay, so welcome. This is a webinar on preparing for list of issues and country reviews to do parallel reporting to the CRPD committee. And I'm Tina Minkowitz from CHRUSP, Center for the Human Rights of Users and Survivors of Psychiatry. I'm very happy to have colleagues who were involved in the country review of Spain, Beatriz Pérez and Hernán María Sampietro, both from the organization ActivaMent in Catalonia in Spain. So Hernán will be joining us a little bit later. Beatriz is with us now. And I'm going to just tell you a little bit about what the format is going to be. First, I'm going to give an overview, very brief overview, just reminding us what the country review process is and how it works. We're going to look at the CRPD committee website to show where you find the information you're going to need. If Bea and Hernán have anything to comment on that piece, they can say it then. Then we're going to talk about written submissions. Again, I will give a few general comments. Bea and Hernán will describe their process that they used in making their written submission for Spain for the country review. And then we will talk about the briefings, the private meetings, and other advocacy in Geneva. So the first part is the written submissions. The second part is what you do when you're traveling to Geneva and you get to meet with CRPD committee members. So again, I will do a little bit of an overview. Bea and Hernán will talk about what they did. And then I would like to have a last section on follow-up. So even when you are just starting to prepare the work that you're going to do, you can be anticipating that there can be something that you can do at the end. Even what do you do once you get the concluding observations? And Bea and Hernán might have some thoughts on that if they've begun to use it in their work. So I will ask everyone to mute themselves. Make sure your mic is muted when you're not talking, so to cut down on any noise. If there's any problems when you're not the one who's speaking, there will be an opportunity. I think that what I would like to do is have an opportunity. Well, first, if you have a question while someone is speaking, please type it in the chat. I hope everyone can see in the GoToMeeting app, or if you're using it on the web, where you can type in the chat. A few people have already typed there to say hi, and if you can't see it, just let me know. We'll figure it out, but I guess everyone can. And then I think at the end of each substantive piece, we can ask, maybe not the overview, but at the end of talking about written submissions and private briefings, we'll especially just turn to all of you and see if you have any questions, especially about that. And then we can, at the end, people can have an opportunity to ask if there's something specific that you're thinking about in relation to your own work and you want to raise that. This is a perfect opportunity. So first, I think you should see on your screen, if you see what I'm screen sharing, and I hope everyone can see that. Please let me know if you can't. This is obviously the CRPD committee's website on OHCHR. You should become familiar with this website if you're not already. On the right-hand side of that page, you can navigate to this link for all of the sessions. So I'm going to do that now. This gets you to pretty much the master list of where all the information is. If your country has already been reviewed, you'll find it by scrolling down. It goes in reverse order, and you can always go backwards or increase, have more of them per page to find your country's review and all of the information about it. So let's just go to one of the ones that's already been done, the review that was just completed. And oh, my computer seems to be slow this morning. So you'll find all of the general documentation for the session, statements that have been made, general statements in the opening. Then you have each state party consideration of the state reports. You have all of the state party submissions, information from civil society organizations, various other things, and the concluding observations. And you'll have the list of issues there that the committee would have sent before obviously as part of this process. So you will always find, once the review has been completed, you can always go back and find all of this information. And if you're interested to research what previous reviews have been like, you can look them up here. You can find all the submissions from civil society organizations, for instance, if you're interested to look at them. Now I'm going to go to, if you want to see all the concluding observations, there are some other ways to do it that are a little bit more efficient. If you're interested in that, ask me and I can show you. But for now, I just want to go to these sessions that are coming up. So you can see here, they list for UN bureaucratic reasons, they have the main session where they do country reviews and some of the list of issues or list of issues prior to reporting. And then they have what they call a pre-sessional working group, which is really pre-sessional in the sense, I don't know why they call it pre-sessional exactly. Maybe they think of it as preparing for the next session, but they have a smaller complement of committee members, a smaller number of the members who will work on lists of issues and lists of issues prior to reporting for the remaining countries that need those. In the main session where they do the state party reports, you will have all the committee members participating. So Australia has already had its list of issues prior to reporting. They're going to be in the main session. And I see one of you, Anisha, is here from Australia. Also, Greece, and Evie is here from Greece. So these two of those of you who are here now, we have the two of you who will be needing to look at this part of this web page for your information. Some of our colleagues in Canada who may look at this recording later will see their list of issues prior to reporting down below. I guess I should have mentioned already, if you're not yet aware of what the different phases are in the process. So if a country is being reviewed for the first time, the first step is that they submit their state party report. So all of these countries that are listed to get their reviews in future sessions, they have submitted their state party report. Some of them are submitting the second state party report, or I guess they're being scheduled for the second time. Some have just submitted the first state party report. the first step that the committee does once they receive the report is that they prepare a list of issues, or they put the country on the schedule to have the list of issues prepared for them. And the list of issues is a set of questions. So I see a question. Can we talk about parallel report and time limit to submit it? Thanks for that. We'll get to that a little bit later when we talk about the written reports. For now, I'm giving somewhat of an overview to make sure everybody understands what the process is. So please remind me if I forget about the time limit. Okay. So when countries are up for their second reporting cycle, they can choose to get a list of issues prior to reporting. It's supposed to be more efficient and cut down on their cut down on what they need to actually do, because first they get the list of questions and then they prepare the report. Not all countries choose to do that, so we see Mexico, and you're here from Mexico, Victor and Diana, that Mexico did not choose to get a list of issues prior to reporting, so apparently they've submitted their second report and they're getting a list of issues. In case anybody wanted to be clear about that aspect of the process. And then after they get the list of issues or the list of issues prior to reporting, they're put on the schedule, usually the following session, for the state party, the country review. And that's when you have the interactive dialogue with the committee in Geneva. I think we're going to go into, I think maybe it's best to really talk about some of that in detail through the experience of Bea and Hernán when we get to the part about Geneva advocacy. But I can just say that there's a session where there's a morning, an afternoon session, and then a morning session where the committee members will ask questions in person to the state party delegation, and the state party delegation will answer. So you have questions on each set of articles in the convention, and NGOs are welcome to sit in and observe that. While NGOs can observe the dialogue with governments, it's important to note that the governments are not allowed to observe the meetings that the committee has with NGOs. The meetings the committee has with NGOs are private, and that's important to protect against any kind of retaliation, which we know happens. So yeah, there's opportunities for NGOs to participate in all of these stages, that you can make written submissions for both the list of issues or list of issues prior to reporting and for the country review. And you can also travel to Geneva, participate in the general NGO country briefing for your country, and have private meetings with committee members. So we'll talk about some of those things in a little bit more detail. As I said, we'll first talk about the written submissions and then talk about what you can do when you travel to Geneva. But first, I would like to ask Bea. I don't think Hernán is with us yet, but Bea is here. If there's anything she wants to say at this point about the general aspects of the process.
Thank you, Tina. Hi, everyone. So I think you said all important things, and when we get into detail about the written submission and about our participation in Geneva, so I can explain some things in more detail about our experience.
Okay, great. Thank you. And so I will ask first if there are any questions about any of that, any of those general issues, really questions about overview of the process, because we're going to address the written submissions in detail and the what you can do in Geneva in detail. So I think, and
hi, Tina. I had a question. It's Stephanie here from France.
Hi, Stephanie. Go ahead. Oh, and please, first, I'm just going to say again, for those of you who weren't here in the very beginning, we are recording this, so if there's anything you want to say that you would not like to have recorded, please let me know and I'll pause the recording so you can say what you need to say. So with that in mind, please go ahead.
Okay, well, thanks for letting me know. I don't know exactly who's here either, but I was looking through the documents and I see that even at the stage of the pre-session with the LOIs, there is the opportunity to be in a closed briefing with the OPDs now, no longer DPOs, OPDs, for the LOI. And the date is already set, the time and everything for France. But it says that only those reporting on state party may be present. So I was wondering if that meant a full-fledged shadow report, or if you send in your suggested LOIs for them, if that suffices at this stage, or you really have to get it all in.
Yes, that suffices. That they would only. It means that those who are actually involved in preparing in relation to a state party, in relation to that state party, that I think, I suppose what they're intending, because sometimes it's not clear. The practice of the committee has sometimes been that any NGO can go and sit in the room when there's an NGO briefing, and then other times the practice has been that it's closed. It's only if you have a direct need to be there. So we should think about it in that way, that it's if you are one of the NGOs that has, a direct need to be in this particular briefing, then you would, then you can come in. So for instance, when we had the country briefing on Spain, Bea and Hernán asked, let it be known that I was supporting them, and also a law professor from Spain, and they specifically requested that we should be able to be present, so we could. So it's if those of you who are directly involved in the shadow reporting, and if there's anyone that you want to invite that you think can support you, and like, I would make myself available when I'm there, if any of you would like me to be there to, in case there's any way that I can support in the briefing, then you're welcome to invite me to do that. And it's your choice who you want to have in the briefing with you, but it's only people who are specifically relating to that country review. I actually want to go now to I just have to find this document. I think that is it. I hope it is. No, that's not it. Maybe it is. What am I looking at there? No. Cannot. What am I looking at there? Is that the guidelines for the, sorry, for the,
Back home, Tina, you haven't.
Sorry, no, because it's yeah, this is, oh no, I'm sorry, that's the wrong thing. Oh, all right, just hold on a second. I thought I had prepared to leave that on my computer screen, but maybe not. So let's get this document. This is the information note. And now we have to go there. This is the information note for the NGOs, for civil society organizations. And now I have to put that up on my screen. Okay. Okay, so this, I believe, is the note. This is what Stephanie would have, that's what you were talking about, right? Where they already say the information. This, and to Mohammed, this is where all the information is going to be about deadlines. So this is the information note for the fall main session and pre-session. So they're calling it the 22nd session of the committee and the 12th pre-session. All the information is going to be in here. The deadlines are going to be in here. The dates of the country reviews and the NGO or civil society country briefings are in here. And so essentially, rather than go through, and actually your deadlines are right here. Written contributions, send by July 26th, okay? Country briefing, submit your request by July 26th. So they're good. They put all the important information right up front. And you need to really look in this document for all the information you need about logistics. If you don't find it, or if you have a question, you can ask me or ask someone else who's experienced. The IDA Secretariat, Sylvia Kwan, who's a former CRPD committee member, can also be very helpful with any of this kind of question that you have. To go to the written submission, first look at the requirements in the information note. They're going to, first you see here on this first page, there's a word limit, 10,700 words in the case of the alternative report. That's your main parallel report. You can submit your main parallel report either in the list of issues session and then submit any supplemental information later on, or you can make a short submission for the list of issues and then submit your parallel report for the next session for the country review. If you look here, there are the written contributions. You see on page 7. Let's see. Okay. So they give information about the deadline, the word limit, the template. They want an introduction of the submitting organization, brief description, etc., executive summary, reference to the specific articles of the convention addressed in the submission, and proposed recommendations. Okay, so they're specifically asking you for the recommendations that you would like the committee to make to your country, or in the case of the for the list of issues, they would like you to give them language about what questions the committee should actually ask. This is helpful to the committee. You also, in addition to what they're asking for there, you should have the concrete information that they need to know, and citations and references to your country's laws, to news reports and such, that will give them the basis to be able to know that the recommendations that you're making to them are valid, that you know what you're talking about, that the questions you want them to ask are good questions. And let's just see what else I had here in my yeah, so I want to make sure to say to people, I think probably everyone who's here would be aware of it, but the standards of the CRPD committee are high, in the sense that they are what we have always been advocating for the abolition of forced psychiatric interventions, abolition of any kind of detention in mental health settings, abolition of even the criminal justice related detention in mental health settings, which I know Documenta in Mexico is working on. And in that case, advocating for a process that is fair to people with disabilities, provides support and accommodation. So the CRPD standards are really good, and don't hesitate to ask for these high standards to be complied with, because in some other settings, especially at the national level, you might have had the experience that you get a lot of pushback, that it doesn't even seem politically feasible, and you may get a lot of people saying to you, no, you can't ask for that, we can't do that here. Well, in the CRPD committee, you can say, we have to do this. We have to, say, abolish the Mental Health Act of the country, and make sure that the legal capacity norms support, reflect that the right that everyone has the right to make their own decisions. You can ask for that, and the CRPD and the CRPD committee should uphold this, but they may not necessarily, the individual, the CRPD committee, even though they have very high standards, you still need to remind them all the time of what their standards are, because the experts on the committee, many of them are not necessarily experts in the issues we're bringing to them. So it's helpful to know that they have these high standards, and to actually keep reminding them of the standards, and remind them of why the standards have to be complied with, and how to tailor it to your particular country. So give citations to the laws, especially if there's specific provisions that just need to be repealed, or specific whole acts that need to be repealed, and or specific changes that are in progress, what needs to be done, and give them the specific language that you want them to use. So, having said that, generally, I'd like to turn it over to Bea, and I don't know if Hernán is with us yet. Looks like we lost somebody, but Bea, and there's someone who I can't tell, but if Bea is here, and if Hernán joins, please, both of you, please discuss what your experiences have been.
Hi, Tina. Hi, everyone.
Hi,
I'm gonna turn on the camera also. Let's try if it is working. So.
I don't see you yet on the camera. Now I see you. Okay.
Now, so hi everyone. Hernán is here. He's coming in a minute. Just he has he has came here from a meeting in 1 minute, and he will be with us just in a moment. So to start talking about the process we follow to do our alternative report on Spain for the review of Spain, I would like to say that it was a collective process. So it might be different if any one of you decides to do it in an individual way. So we will explain the steps we conduct to construct that alternative report. And I would like also to recommend that if you have the opportunity to do it collectively, I think it is a very good option. One moment, please. I can see the question, so I think someone is typing. Okay. So Hernán is here with us.
Hi, Tina. How everybody?
Okay. So I was saying, Hernán, that we will explain the process that we did collectively. That might be different if they decide to do it in an individual way. So, but I was thinking that for us it's important to say that while doing collectively, there is an important promotion of empowerment and also a learning about human rights that we develop different people on doing that report, which was very important for us, and also in the dissemination of this work. The thing that there were 12 persons involved also give more dissemination of the process and everything. It was for us very important experience on learning about the convention and a very important process on empowerment for our collective. So
yes, and I think no, the collective process give us the possibility to have a better result, a better report, because everybody can put his or her own background, his or her own experience, and everybody have an expertise in one area, and that was why we can do it in a short time.
Yeah. Another important thing is that we know about the possibility of creating this shadowed report only 1 month and 1 week before of the deadline. So it was a very quick process. And so we'll try to explain all the actions we conduct. The first thing that we did, what was also important and was prior to conduct this writing report, was to do a meeting of activist movement, activists in mental health here, persons with experience of hearing voices, survivors of psychiatry, users, with Tina, because Tina was here. So there was the context in which we announced, we said that there was the possibility to do this writing report, and it was an important context of interpellation and commitment with that process. We decided in that day to do this writing report, and although we didn't know how to do it, and it was just a short time for doing it.
Yeah, the first question to defense of right is, you have the right. That's why it was so important for us, that meeting, because we didn't know we can do a shadow report. Yes, the first step was the creation of a work commission. Yes, we we called people all around Spain, users, survivors, members of associations, or people that want to participate. People that were interested in collaborating. That was the first step. We used the social networks. We use emails and well, different channels.
And in the first meeting of that commission that we created, what we did and was very important for the process was to prioritize the key articles that that represent, that comprehend the most important human rights vulnerations at where we are exposed, that here in Spain. So the most relevant articles, we prioritize them, and then we draft them in an accessible language, and we disseminate it in the networks, in the social networks, asking people to give personal testimonies of vulnerations of those rights, so we can have the experience of the people.
Yes, people can just send us an email or fulfill a formulary. How do you say formulary? A form. Yes, a Google form to explain the different experiences of rights violations, and specifically on some articles of the CRPD. That was a pool of testimonies to use as model, as examples of what was happening in Spain.
So while doing that, what we did is, of course, to read the last final observations that Spain received from the committee, and also the report that Spain was given on this year to answer the questions that the committee make to Spain. So we read that, and we created an online document for working collaboratively, and in this document we put the rights that we were going to work on, that we prioritized the articles of the convention with the prior observations that the committee make to Spain, and with the responses that Spain was giving.
Yes, for that we do different steps. We did teams that worked in specific articles. We were systematizing the testimonies to select which one can we use, and we were reading Spanish laws that violate the CRPD. Yes, we were trying to find not only the experience, but the law too. Yes, we have a lot of laws that are contraries of the CRPD. For example, the Spanish law regulates the coercive sterilizations, for example, involuntary sterilizations, for example. That was part of this step, of this moment.
Yeah, and this is a very important thing. So to know which laws in your country are vulnerating the convention, which laws allowed involuntary commitment and forced treatment, sterilizations, legal incapacitation, etc. So it was a work for us also, that we learned what were those laws. We didn't know it before exactly, and we started writing. We wrote this shadow report only in 10 days. So it was like a very intense and a crazy process, but also very. We felt very committed, very interpellated, and there was like we had dispositive of work in which you could assign to yourselves some tasks, and others could know what you were doing. And there was also some of us that were trying to coordinate, calling people, seeing what was doing everyone, because we were so interpolated that everyone was doing a lot of things, and sometimes you didn't know what was doing everyone, but it was very intense and a process.
Yes, but one thing, important thing, is that was not only to create parts of a puzzle and put it together. That we did that, but after create the different parts of the puzzle, we work collective again to understand, yes, what was made. I think everybody had to understand the arguments, the examples that were in every single part. Because when you work in a document, maybe you think it's clear, but when another one read it, it's not so easy. And that was another part of the process.
And also, it was very important that we have the support in that process of Tina and Antonio Pujalte, who is professor of disability rights, human rights in disability. He's a professor, so they have access also to the document, and they could make us comments, and we can ask them things. So they were in some way reviewing the work we were doing.
Yeah, we had also Beatriz Trancon.
Beatriz Trancon.
Yes, she's a lawyer with the first-person experience of mental disorder. She was part of the team too. We need that support of people expert in laws. That was Tina Minkowitz, Beatriz Trancon, and Antonio Luis Martinez Pujalte is the name.
And so after 3 days before the deadline, that we were like working in a very short time, we meet all together, all that could be here, because there were people working from another parts of Spain, but the people that were in Catalonia, we meet together and we start making that process of reading what the others were writing, and trying also to cut the name of words, because you have a words limit. So I think in the you can see here is 10,700 words. So we had to cut a lot of words.
That was the hardest part.
Yeah, and we had also to translate it to English. We make the report in Spanish, and also we translate it to English, and we send it in both languages. We preferred to translate it to English because we know that the committee members, most of them, all of them speak English, but Spanish just one or two. So it was important to give them our words in English. That was also an advice of Tina. And we sent that document both in English and Spanish, and maybe later we can start talking you about how was our advocating in Geneva. But I think we have finished on this part. You have to say anything else?
I think it's okay. I don't know if you have some questions to do.
Yeah, if you have some questions, or we can. So
I have a question. This is Stephanie again. How exciting. That's amazing you were able to do that in such short time. And you're a real example for us. I wish I missed you when I got my first little adventure experience in Geneva. It was very amazing. And so now, of course, I hope in France we can do something. But it's very impressive how you were able to bring so many people together. And I was wondering what kind of a platform exactly you used for that to share the documents, so you avoid redundancies. You understand, like repetitive work, like it's very dangerous when one person's doing something and another person's not. Or I'd be interested in more how you organized that and how many people you were able to reach, and if you had problems with disagreements, even your experience with problems you had getting along together to agree on the principles.
Okay, I think it was not so hard for us because we usually work like that. Yes, we have a long tradition here in ActivaMent, at least, to work in that way, collective, as a team, and we think the final result always is a collective authority.
Authority.
Yeah, exactly. That's an important question. And which resources we use? The simple Google Drive documents and WhatsApp, Skype was just like that. Nothing so unusual.
Yeah, and
it's not easy
the
for
hardest
everyone.
part. Yeah, we had two moments that were difficult. The first one was to decide which articles we will produce. Yes, we will
write on.
Yeah, exactly. Them. Because some people wanted to include new articles and it was impossible because we had so much to say about the articles we choose. That was the first difficult moment. And the second difficult moment was to cut, because we had more than 20,000 words, and that was so much. That was the only two difficult moments. But to produce it, it was, I don't know, it was a natural way to work for us.
So how many people were involved? How many people were in your coalition? How many people from the ground answered?
We were working on the document directly, 12 persons, 12 people. But we not all people was doing the same work. So there were some of us that were writing articles and some other people that were picking up laws, picking up information,
selecting
the
verbatims,
selecting the testimonies and systematizing the testimonies. So we were 12, including the people that was expert on laws, including Tina, including Antonio and Beatriz. But we were involved in a different ways. Some of these people participated only in the translation of the document. Some of them participated in the grammatical correction of the document. Some of others grabbed some articles and pick up the information. Others give us the laws. So it was like that. But everyone had the possibility to edit the document, and we had any problem. I think that if there was a problem on the process, that it was a very short time, and we were all very interpolated, and we were all doing a lot of things, and sometimes we didn't know what was doing the other, and we wanted to put everything on there. So we need to decide to not put some articles that were important for us also, and yeah, so it was like difficult for us to say, okay, we cannot put this article, although someone was working, picking up information on that. It was a difficult decision. And also, I think that we had different experience and different knowledge about human rights and about the conventions. There were law experts, and there were people who never listened about the convention and about the rights. So it was a challenge to make everyone included in the process. because the people that never heard about the convention wanted to do something but didn't know what they could do. But so they felt like they were like trying to do something, they were doing things, but maybe we could use all that was done on that process. But thinking on that persons, I think that they could do at the end of the writing about rights, the correction of the document, in the language correction and other kinds of things. So they could, I think they felt, I think there was a very good mood and effective understanding of the situation. For example, I remember a moment in which a companion felt bad because she felt that Andrea, she felt like
some people need another ride. Maybe that was going so fast, and some people was feeling that was not fully included because it was not understanding what were we doing in that moment. Yes,
and it was a very short time. Yes. But when it happens, we talk all together, and it was solved very well.
Yeah, the first thing when you have a problem is to accept that maybe you were working in a bad way. It's not a problem of some member, it's a problem of the dynamics of the group.
I think it was a problem of the deadline.
Yeah, the deadline. Exactly.
We have 10 days, and we didn't know. We never done this before, and we were all trying to do things. So, and some people that never heard about the convention couldn't, at the beginning, get in the process, although they go in a very full way. But they could get when it was work, like correcting, like putting testimonies, making.
We have another deadline for the group, for us. That was when people can go in the group. Yes, we have a person that wants to participate the last 2 days, and the last 2 days you can't do it because it's impossible for us to explain you what this is because we had no time. That was another question.
Yeah, that was another question. We decided all together to say that woman that we couldn't incorporate her now in an inclusive way because there were 2 days we were all trying to work, and it was difficult to that someone that didn't know anything about the convention, about anything, could be included on that moment when we were almost finishing the work, and we had to translate it to English, to review it with words. So
that's amazing. Congratulations, and being so inclusive. As you said, the whole process is also empowering and very educational about human rights. So that's fantastic. But I still want to know, thanks to your web social networking, which is not developed enough in France to reach people, how many people contributed with their story, with their, like, how many people were you able to touch? And did you tell the CRPD committee this?
Yeah, we have 40 testimonies, I think. We pick up, people write 40 testimonies from different regions of Spain. But there was another thing. We had this source of testimonies that they were participating also, giving their testimony, but we had also a human rights guide that we worked and that we edit and published in 2016 that it includes a lot of testimonies of human rights violations. So we had a lot of testimonies. And we think also if you can include testimonies on your report, it was an advice of Tina also, it is very important to show what is the experience of living this kind of violence.
Of course, we couldn't include all.
Another thing is that ActivaMent, for example, we are 600 now.
500
Okay, 600 members. And Yerba Buena, who was the other entity working on that, are 500 members. And ActivaMent is very active in social networks. We have like Twitter, and a lot of people read our networks.
Yes, yes. And we have 7,500 in Twitter and almost 7,000 in Facebook. And our webpage receives almost 2,000 visits a day. And that's why it was fast to collect testimonies.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow,
Hey.
I can say, all I can say
Yeah.
is, wow, bravo.
Yeah, it really is impressive. I am also super impressed by what you describe about your general collective style of working and what it shows about the power of what you were able to accomplish. So it's not something that I've really done in my experience either, but I think it's really something that the rest of us in the movement who don't yet work that way should really need to learn, because we see how powerful it is.
There were happening also another kind of things. For example, one woman who was from our team, who was in the commission, was talking with families about the rights of child of their school, and the families wanted to make a manifestation.
I don't know how to say it.
A political
protest
Demonstrate.
about that, and things started to happen that we couldn't predict in some way. And finally, we didn't got this article inside of our report because there was not space. What was dealing, but it happened. There happened another things that you couldn't predict, that mobilized another people and things like that. But
and maybe we finish with the federation, as in Spanish Federation, after this working in network, and we were ActivaMent Yerba Buena, 2 associations, but in other process we continue working in rights, and now we include an entity from Andalusia in the south of Spain. Now we are 3 entities working together, and maybe we finish having a federation all around Spain.
I
was wondering if you did you work with your National Disability Council, and what is your relationship with them?
No.
Were they present? I assume they were present, or maybe your Human Rights Council. Did you meet them in Geneva? Was that a good experience? Or
we are a Catalan entity. We work a lot with the government of Catalonia. Yes. Just today I came back from a meeting that we start to be part of a government committee to produce the
mental health plan.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. The mental health and addiction administration. We are from today members of a committee, the advisor committee. But it's only here in Catalonia. We don't work outside of Catalonia. It's a question of when we were born, you have to choose where you can work. And we are only from Catalonia. As Yerba Buena is only from Asturias. We only work in areas.
But I think that her question, it was about the national independent institution that reviews the CRPD. So we didn't work with them, but when we were in Geneva, we got very good relation with them. We have a problem in that institution, is that family associations are representing us inside of there. So we were also reporting that in our report, that family associations are saying they represent us, and we got the final observations of the committee for Spain to fix that. So we got they support us a lot when we were in Geneva, like, and it was very nice, but there was like the top of this institution, but not the big family association that represents us. This one wasn't there, and we're still having some problems on that because they appropriate from our work and things like that. But
about the federation that we were saying, in that council, we can't be there because we are not a second level organization. Yes, we are first level. You are association in the first level, federations or confederations the second and third level. You can be there only if you are in a second or third level. We need to create something like that to have a first voice representation in that space. We are in that process. Yes, historically, the family federation, the family, yes, were using that spaces. And the trick is they changed their name. The name before, a few years ago, the name was a family association, family federations of mental ill people, something like that. Yes, but they decide to change the name, and they say that they represent all the collective of mental health. Well, it's part of our fight to create an national organization that allow us to be in that spaces.
Okay.
And what about these
Tina,
people, CERMI? You know, CERMI is very well known. Were they there? What is your relationship with them?
We are talking about CERMI. CERMI, we are not inside of CERMI. Inside of CERMI, there is the family organization, but not we, because we are not constituted in a state level. But we can try to ask that and enter as a coalition also, because now we have
okay.
And I would just like to clarify, in case it's not well understood, Spain has a unique situation where CERMI is both the National Disability Federation of the DPOs, and it is also designated as the national monitoring mechanism for the convention. I think Spain is so far the only country that has done that. Often it's a national human rights institution that is designated that way, but in Spain, and it seems, and from when we were in Geneva and hearing about it, it seems that everybody is satisfied with CERMI playing that role, and the only problem with it really is that for our sector, it's the family organizations that are occupying that space. So it looks like that's something that now it may be possible to change, that it's going to take some work. So I just want to check in and where we are right now, because there was another question. I see Mohammed is raising a lot of points, but Mohammed, your points are really about your particular situation in France. So we can get to that closer to the end, after we've heard more about the general some general information about the meetings in Geneva, and then the experience of Bea and Hernán in Geneva. Leah has a question in the chat. She writes, "Hi, Beatriz and Hernán. One question I heard a lot this election season about the achievement of the right to vote for people with intellectual disabilities. Was this a product of CRPD work by your organization or another one?" She says, "Thanks and greetings from Andalusia." I think she is living there now, right? So yeah.
It was done before the review of Spain. So it is not directly linked to our work in that review, because the achievement vote was prior to this review of Spain was a way of Spain to show that we are doing things, like prior to being reviewed. So
that is so funny because that's exactly what France just did before it's reviewed. Defining voting rights to persons under guardianship, okay? So they'll prove they're doing something, but they still have guardianship.
Spain also did one thing, declare a day of the CRPD in Spain. Prior going to the but it's very good. It was done. It was very important.
Yes, maybe we have to wait 8 years. Exactly.
So just to move us along, I think it would be good to get into the what happens when you go to Geneva now, unless there's any specific questions about their experience with the written report. But I think we've pretty much covered that, and we can talk about the Geneva advocacy, and then they'll again and from both the overview of that and the experience, and then we can, and then about follow-up, and there's still more time that we can have for additional questions and discussion, including for people to bring up their own specific country situations they're working on. So I'm going to go back to, for Geneva advocacy, I'm going to go back to this document, the information note of the CRPD committee. So one thing that everybody will get to do if you travel to Geneva, and it is really a good idea to be there in person, they will consider, if you send a written submission, they can certainly consider the written submission even if you don't travel there in person. But it is really helpful to be visible and to be able to have the interaction with committee members to just get to to get to promote your issues and to explain it and have some back and forth discussion of it in a way that the written report, once it's done. So one thing everybody will get to do is to participate, and I'm going to mute people who aren't muting themselves because it's distracting when there's any typing or other noise. One thing that everyone will get to do is to participate in the country briefing of the civil society organizations that's scheduled for your country. You'll see some of what's on the schedule here when your country is scheduled. So Tuesday, August 27th, Australia will be in that time period. Greece is going to go on Monday, September 2nd, and of the countries we're talking about, then we have Canada, Wednesday, September 4th. Usually France is Monday, September 23rd, so this is getting into the pre-session. Japan later that same day, the 23rd. Mexico also on the 23rd. So 3 of you who are on this call, 3 of the organizations or collective country groupings are going to be going on that day, the 23rd. And that can be, so a bunch of you and I also will be in Geneva at that time, and we can talk together and prepare together if that's something that's helpful. Then Singapore, if Emmy or anyone else decides that they're able to do something, that's going to be the next day on the 24th. And this is only for those who are here on this in this webinar. The format, it's usually an hour that you get for all of the civil society organizations from your country And you have to share that time among all of the organizations and that wish to speak. And there's time that has to be allocated for the committee to ask you questions and to be able, and then you get to respond to them. So they've said I'm still going to use the word DPO. For DPO coalitions, the average speaking time you'll get is 7 minutes. For single organizations, the average speaking time is 5 minutes. It may sound like it's not a lot of time, but if you prepare your statement carefully, there's quite a bit that you can get into that amount of time. It's something where you prepare your statement and then you keep cutting. You keep cutting anything that's inessential, and you can be left with something that's very good and very substantial. Here they say the deadline to request participating in a country briefing, it says 26th September, but I think it's 26th of July. I think that was in the beginning of this note. Yeah, you have to submit the request by the 26th of July. And make sure you keep the deadlines. Sometimes they will exceptionally extend the deadline, but it's really good to just keep the deadlines and treat it as a serious thing, and that shows that you are taking it all seriously. Again, it shows what you have to indicate in your request. You don't, and you should submit an electronic version of your statements in advance. You can do it through video conference, but Skype does not meet their technical requirements. I don't think GoToMeeting does either. Usually the only things that meet their requirements for a video conference is a setup that some universities or some organizations might have, but it's not the kind of thing that your usual DPO or NGO is necessarily going to have that technology. So that's for people who can't get to Geneva. If you absolutely can't travel there and you have a university near you or a big NGO that might have this kind of equipment, then you can think about asking to have it through a video conference. You can also organize a briefing outside of the official time. So think about it. This is actually something that I hadn't planned on. I hadn't actually been thinking about. Sometimes either if you think that in your country briefing you might not get enough time to get your issues in, but you want to bring all the committee members together, or there's a particular theme that you want to focus on that maybe is a strong issue in your country. So maybe say that's not necessarily the usual. So maybe there's a particular kind of forced psychiatric intervention, or maybe there's the kind of issues that I know you're working on in Mexico about what's going on in the criminal justice system. And you might want to organize a thematic briefing for the committee to provide extra information on that particular issue. You cannot do a thematic briefing in the pre-session. They don't. I believe that's. I don't know if it's simply if you could request it, but it's not really done. It's a smaller number of committee members, and they're focusing on the list of issues. It doesn't seem. But it's the kind of thing that you can do for sure when you're in the main session. And if you're coming for the pre-session, but you are if your list of issues is scheduled for the pre-session, but you want to do a thematic side event this particular session of the committee, not wait till the spring or whenever your review is, you could come early and do a side event, a thematic briefing during the pre-session, during the main session. You don't have to limit yourself to going to the CRPD committee only for the specific dates that anything's taking place about your country. So some of us, like me and a few others, will often go to Geneva and do thematic briefings for the committee on some issue that might be coming up. So that's just something to think about. And one of my colleagues was actually thinking about wanting to do a thematic briefing on the issue of suicide. And I'm not sure if she's gonna get to go now, but that's an example of the kind of thing that it might be coming up as a particular issue in your country, and how forced psychiatry is being justified, or maybe your country has criminalized suicide and now they want to decriminalize it, but they want to put people into forced psychiatry instead. So it's the kind of thing that, to flesh it out, it could be useful to have a thematic briefing. So and then again, if you're planning a thematic briefing and you know that others of your colleagues are going to be there, people from other countries, you might want to see if you want to get more people in on it. So I think all of us here might if people are going to Geneva, you can ask each other, would you like to join me in doing this side event for the committee? If you're doing a side event, there's going to be a little bit of a cost. You have to provide the captioning service. That's the only other thing to know about it. So besides that, that was kind of a tangent about thematic briefings that you can think about if you're going to be there anyway for your list of issues or country review. But for the country review itself, you get to participate in the country briefing, which lasts about an hour, where all the civil society organizations can participate. You'll get 5 minutes to speak, or 7 minutes if you are a coalition. And okay, so there's that. And you have to register by July 26th. But you can also request private meetings with the committee members. Usually these meetings will last about half an hour. Sometimes the country rapporteur will schedule meetings jointly with all of the NGOs outside of the briefing time. I don't know if this is becoming a common practice or not. I know you'll hear about what happened with Spain. Definitely, if you're going to Geneva, request a private meeting with your country rapporteur or rapporteurs. It may be one person, it may be two, but those are the people. Definitely request a private meeting with them. And and think about requesting private meetings with other committee members also. It could be delicate to discuss the strengths and weaknesses of individual committee members, so I wouldn't want to get into that here, but it's something I'm happy to discuss with people privately if they want, or we could turn off the recording if people want to discuss that. I think I can say, without having any problem about it, that the Lithuanian committee member Jonas Ruskus has really come forward as a particular champion around our issues. And, I think if he's available, have no hesitation to ask for a meeting with him. Many others are willing to make themselves available, and I've been requesting whether they would permit me to give out their email addresses. Most of them have said yes. One of them has requested that I introduce her to the people who want to meet her by email. So that's something that's definitely available to do. And I think that's, and then make sure to follow up even after you have the private meetings. You know, well, if you're in the country review, I think maybe we'll hear from Bea and Hernán, because I think their concrete experience with this will be the best way to illustrate what I want to say. So I'll turn it over to Bea and Hernán again, and you can describe what your experiences were.
Do you want to start? Yeah.
So hi again. So after sending our report, we will tell you what we did prior to get to Geneva, and then when we were in there. So we did, and it was very important thing. I think it was. I recommend you. It was a recommendation of Tina. We took our alternative report and we did a synthesis. What was 4 pages, yes, something like that, and very quick to read. And we sent that to the committee members. But okay, before of sending that, we have like a period of a lot of work of coordination also to appoint meetings, private meetings with committee members. And we prioritize, of course, we contact first with the country reporters. Tina was telling us what we need to do because it was our first experience. So she told us contact with that member. She provide us the contacts or make the contact in some ways. Another important thing that we didn't talk about before, it was that one finished our alternative report without that we needed to include more information about Article 6 on women with disabilities, because we had no space, and we missed up in the quickness of the process some important information. So what we did is someone of our team that was working on that file, we asked her to make a small report, a specific report on women with psychosocial disabilities. And we sent that also in private through email to the committee members that we were arranging private meetings. So some contacts were made through Tina, but another contacts we make them by ourselves.
Over there, yeah.
Yeah. You can find the email of all the members of the committee in the web of the committee of the convention, and you can ask also to the secretarian of the committee, who is the country reporter of your country, to make the contact with them. So we elaborated this flyer, this summary of what was the situation in Spain, what laws need to be derogated, and what were our petitions, our observations, our recommendations, what we wanted to the committee to recommend to our state.
Yes, and we prepare our speak that they are wrote there. We validate collective that speak. Bea was assigning how to do it because we had only 4 minutes or something like that. Yeah. You have to do it very fast.
We didn't know the number of minutes we had until the first day and the prior day to doing the speech. So we needed to cut it a little bit on last time, and we wrote that speech in Spanish and translated into English and sent it in both languages. But okay, now after arranging the
first things we did when we were there, was a meeting with another entities of Spain, another DPOs of Spain, yes, to know each other. There we knew Sermi woman. We were with we were 6 or 7. I don't remember exactly. No, it's not right. Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. I didn't understand, if just 1 minute before you go into the rest of the things you did. It's amazing, all your contacts with these committee members. And I wanted to understand, when you talked about your speech, when you said speech, did you mean your private meetings with the committee members? You had 3 minutes, or when?
No private meeting.
No, the structure for the private meetings, we have half an hour or 1 hour. It depends on the it depends on the committee member. But there are, as Tina said, there are 2 official spaces in which we can participate. One which is with DPOs, and there is not the state. You are with the committee alone in a very big room, and in that space you are allowed to do a speech that is between 7 and 4 minutes. And
it's a big difference, 4 minutes or 7 minutes. Yeah, it's a big difference to do it.
Yeah, so we were talking about this speech. So when we got, we answered the question. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And that's amazing. 1 hour with a committee member like that. That's amazing. Private meeting like that.
We were like very nervous because we didn't went to Geneva, neither to UN, and we were very worried about the clothes and so on.
Yeah, I like worried about the language too. Yeah.
Language, clothes, everything. But what we first day that we were in Geneva, we had a private meeting with 1 member of the committee and another with the 2 country reporters and other people, and Tina was with us in all the meetings. But it was like the role that we decided to have. It was like Tina will be there to give support, but we were the one talking most. So because we thought it was important to have the active role, but of course the presence of Tina in there was very important because there was a confidence relationship she had already with the members of the committee. She can, if we didn't know how to express ourselves, she can give us the words, and then she can clarify something. So it was very important that.
I just want to explain a feeling, yes, not a fact. I don't know what were we thinking about when we were there, because I don't know. But the members of the CRPD are not politicians. They are people like you, like me, like everybody else. They are. I don't know how to say. It's easy to be with them in a meeting to explain your experience. They know what are you talking about because they are people that suffered discrimination too. Yes, my feeling is they hear you. They really hear you. Whether you explain it.
Yeah, we were very surprised about that because we felt the support of the members on the committee, and we felt people that were listening at us and taking notes and supporting. So while we are usually in a political representations space,
it's not like that.
It's not like that. They didn't recognize our rights even. So it was like, and they are, most of them, people with some kind of disability, so they understand very well what you are talking about. So it was like very,
I don't know how to say, proximal.
Yeah, very close
near,
people,
exactly.
Very near people. It was like there was, I felt like someone who listened, someone. There was an effective relationship also in that meetings, and a deep respect on what you were saying. So after having these meetings, the prior day on the prior day to the meetings with the DPOs, we had the meeting with the DPOs. So in the morning, we meet with the DPOs of our country, and
they explain us how will be the process.
Yeah, they explain you how it's going to be the process. You meet each other. You know what are the claims, some way of each other a little bit, and later we have the official meeting in which first every organization give his own speech, and later the committee make you questions.
And you have only 1 minute to answer that question.
It's like, because we had a problem on that, because it used to be, I think, Tina, I don't know if I'm right, 2 hours, but we have 1 hour because the prior thing was being delayed. So we have just 1 hour. So the time to answer these questions were 4 minutes for each organization, something like that. It was very short time, and it was very difficult even to follow the questions and everything. For me, especially because I didn't realize that I can put the translation to Spanish, so I was a little bit lost in some moments. But you have the questions written, you can read it on your screen, and you can hear it in your tongue language if this is official language of the UN. And so we did that, and later we have another meetings with members of the committee and with Tina during the lunch time. During the lunch time, and here we meet.
You have not a real pause. You have to work from the first hour of the morning until the last hour of the night, because if you have a lot of opportunities, yes, to hear the other questions, to meet with people maybe that was not previously prepared. It was not.
Yeah.
Yes, for example, Risnawati Utami, yes, a member of the CRPD of Indonesia. She was there, and she came to lunch with us, for example, yes. Well,
and we meet, I wanted to say, from people from Mexico, that I think you are here. We meet Amalia Eva
Gamia Rios
from Mexico, and she was very supportive of our cause in their questions to our country. She was very clear, asking about psychiatrics, about human rights violations in psychiatric units, and very clear. So I think you can try to make close to her, because she becomes very sensitive and was making important questions also. So in the afternoon, it was starting the constructive dialogue with Spain, which is where the committee members make questions to Spain, and Spain has to answer. You don't have voice in there. You don't speak in there, but you can.
Yes. First, your government just speak. They explain what they want. Just, I want to say, don't become nervous. Yes. When we're here, our government, I were near to become crazy. What are they talking about? What are they saying? That they are lying? Why? But you will have the opportunity, yes, to send even in alive the real things. For example, they were speaking about anti-stigma campaign in the state level that was not true. That was
pharma industry propaganda.
Exactly. Yes, but you can find in internet what are they talking about. You can send it to the members of the committee alive, and they will read it. They will. That was our experience. They were speaking. They were how to say, confundiendo. They were mixing. They were mixing laws that are for in.
Our government was lying, or We don't know if intentionally or unintentionally, but was lying sometimes. So
mixing,
when the mixing,
with,
he
with
was
intellectual
saying
disability.
that
Yes.
some measures on work that are special from people with intellectual disabilities were from people with psychosocial disabilities, for example, or that about this campaign anti-stigma, which is not a campaign anti-stigma, which is a pharma industry propaganda, or they were saying also in the first speech of the state that to justify involuntary commitment, they were saying that people with
mental disorders are not people with psychosocial disabilities.
People with mental disorders doesn't have a disability, so the law that allows involuntary commitment is not a discriminative law for people with disability. So these kind of things. So, but what was important is that because we meet before with 5 or 6 members of the committee in online, and Tina told us, if you have something important to say online, tell them to the committee. We have their email. So online, when we see alive, when we see that the Spanish was saying something incorrect, something that was a lie, something that was completely, so we wrote the members on the committee and sent in our view, and if we have some data, the data that supported.
That was the hardest moment, because first you have to hear your government lying, yes, and you can be afraid about the results of that lie, and you have to work really fast because they speak about a lot of things, to find the things that you are looking for on internet, to send it, to write an email to explain it. Well, that was the hardest moment.
Hernán was very good at that. I was completely lost. I couldn't get all the information and do that a lot. But Hernán was sending emails like all the time. So okay, and after that space, what is I think 4 hours, it is time to have dinner and everything. We went home and we write what was some questions to make to Spain to the next day for the committee. We write them some questions to make to Spain.
And they did it.
And they did it, yeah. So, and you can do that when there is a break between the first part of the constructive dialogue and the second part. You can think about what questions must be done to Spain, and they did the ones we asked, and
our government didn't answer.
No, but okay, they were showing they have no answer, or their answer will be against human rights. So, and on the second day of the constructive dialogue, the thing was the same. We were listening in Spain and making and sending information to the members of the committee if anything was wrong or on that. And I think, yeah, and after that, the country reporters wrote us and said, give us your final considerations and observations after listening to your country, and we make a document on that night, and we send them what were the most important observations that they need to make to Spain in the final observations from our view, and they include everything. We were completely amazed because the final observations to Spain are, if they are respected, it will transform completely the mental health system and a lot of things. So. And they also make a lot of special observations for women with disabilities, so with psychosocial disabilities. So this report that we sent later, it was also very effective. And so they include abolition of involuntary commitment, forced treatment. They describe the practices that were considered torture, the abolition of sterilization, and so including a mental and human rights institution, independent institution in each region of Spain to evaluate and review mental health services.
And they specify exactly which articles or laws must be changed or abolished.
We were very surprised because they include everything we asked for. So now we have a very strong final observations to advocacy here. And we don't know if you have some question that we can answer. Another thing that we did, which is very important, we include in our report people that was died through human right violence, human right violations, people that were murdered in some way because this kind of state violence against people with psychosocial disabilities.
We include some examples of how the government medias do.
They also we include in our report how the government media reproduce, stigmatize, and justify involuntary commitment, forced treatment, and all these things. With the news also how it is maintained, this structural violence against people with psychosocial disabilities. We said that it could be conceptualized as a state violence against people with psychosocial disabilities, and we put some key points that maintain this structure, like the principle of best interest, like the hypothesis of neurochemical imbalance, like the prejudice of incompetence and dangerousness, the criteria. We tried to describe in our report in which way this violence are sustained and maintained, through which arguments, needs, and Sorry, I don't know if there is any question, or maybe we need to pass to other thing because it was so much time. Or...
I have a question. I'm Diana from Mexico, and I'll probably talk to you later, taking advantage that we speak Spanish. So, but I wanted to know if all the work that you did was before the Spain's examination, or were you also involved in previous, like in the list of issues and doing something for that previous stage? Because Mexico is going now in September for this first part, like the list of issues, and we wanted to submit something with questions that we believe the committee should ask. But I don't know if you were involved in that part or just in the second part, the review process.
Just in the review process, because we didn't know anything about that before.
5 weeks before to go, we knew we had the possibility to send a report.
Yeah.
Okay, gracias. Thank you.
So I hope that I think what you described was really wonderful and very full and represents probably the best possible experience that anyone can have going to the CRPD committee or going really to any treaty body. And I think that we can all aim to have a similar experience, and at the same time understand that there are some factors that are not going to be in your control. So I think it's important to take advantage of every opportunity you had, as Bea and Hernán did, and you know, sorry, it's a little bit hard to okay, I'm just seeing that there's a distracting thing up there, so that I'm just going to move a little bit. Yeah, it was really a very a super wonderful experience with Spain, and I think Spain actually, even by the kind of answers that the government gave, was really helping the DPOs, helping ActivaMent and Yerba Buena in particular, the DPOs of people with psychosocial disabilities, because they were so strongly defending their practices and laws that violate human rights, when they were insisting that people with mental disorders were somehow not people with disabilities. And the committee took this opportunity to explicitly say, for the first time, you know, to make explicit that every person with a mental health condition needs to be considered a person with psychosocial disability, which is telling countries that you cannot get away with saying that there are some, you know, there's some separate category of mental health conditions or mental disorders that people don't have the rights under the CRPD. And we also had some, country rapporteurs who were very proactive and they took full advantage of the really good information and really deep knowledge that Bea and Hernán were able to bring to them. So, you know, I don't know if anybody did have further questions for them, but if for that on that particular piece, there was one more general thing that I just wanted to refer to, and I don't know if there's much to say about it at this point, but only to mention that there's a need to think about follow-up and what you're actually going to do with the concluding observations and recommendations once you get them. So I don't know if Bea and Hernán have anything to say about that, or if it's still too soon. And if you have anything, you can come in on that now, or else we can just open. Yeah, go ahead.
We have like a very concrete experience in which we used that final observations just this week. It was one of the deaths that we reported in our committee through psychiatric violence, produced in psychiatric violence. So the sister of that woman is making judicial process to prosecute the professionals and the institutions that were involved in the. It was a woman that died from a meningitis untreated, that was 3 days tied to a bed, over-medicated, and without being able to access to the organic treatment that she needs, because they put her a diagnosis of mental disorder, and they didn't follow the law that vulnerates our rights in Spain, that allows involuntary commitment. So okay, and in these situations, we get in contact with the sister of that woman that is mobilization. It's making a mobilizations of all the entities in Spain linked to mental health. She's doing a brilliant work. She's making this situation in Prensa, and it's a very known situation. So this weekend we wrote also collaboratively. It was another crazy thing. An analysis from the perspective of the CRPD of the circumstances of the death of that woman for the for el juicio, for the judicial process.
Yes, the same forensic doctor that signed the involuntary commitment. It's the forensic doctor that did the autopsy
and destroyed
the
proofs,
exactly.
Put
the brain in formol, and you can't
not find if she had really a meningitis.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of things that make that she was with a meningitis, because she had a prior infection and she was coming there for an organic infection.
And
so
yes, in el proceso judicial, they want to close the case, saying that they can prove nothing. They want to close it, and her sister is moving a lot of associations and professionals to stop that. They want to go ahead with the
persecution
exactly.
So and I think what important thing that in this case we use for doing that report, the final and other things, but a lot the final observations of the committee to Spain. So we could say that Spain, we could, because the problem was that the professionals, the critical professionals here, were making the analysis in a restricted way that violates human rights, which is our law. So the involuntary commitment wasn't done in the way it must be done. So we wanted to bring the human rights perspective and say, no, the involuntary commitment, it's in human rights vulnerations. It was the first step and we put all the human rights vulnerations that were going one each other and produce their diet. So, and the important thing of that is that we did it with another organization. So it's not only ActivaMent, Hierba Buena, so another from other part of Spain joined us. And this document has been signed. It's been there's been people adhering and entities to this document.
Yes, international entities and national entities.
Yeah, and
including
entities,
professional entities.
Including professionals, which is very important, because the professional entities, the critical ones here, were not critical with involuntary commitment. They defend involuntary commitment. And it's the first time that they put their signature and they adhere to a document that that is, of course, saying that involuntary commitment is a human right violation. So this is
yes, and that report, it's we send it to the judicial process.
Yeah. So and there is in Prensa the situation. It will come to Prensa and the very important Prensa here. So we think that it could be a way to raise the observations of the committee to world population and start a discussion about involuntary commitment, forced treatment, and that things.
Human rights violations.
Yeah, specific for psychosocial disabilities and also intellectual sometimes also. So
and we are waiting. We are waiting because the final report of the CRPD was made 1.5 months ago. Maybe if the things doesn't change, maybe we have to think about a judicial strategy to try to change the laws. But now it's that
we are
moment.
Using in the experiences that COMA has a possibility to put it in there. We are using it also with the.
I don't know how to say jurisprudencia. I don't know how to say it. When you, I don't know how to say it because it's a technical expression. But when you have a judicial sentence, yes, that sentence it's a reference for the future sentences, future judicial process. We are trying to do that. We
of course, it's like excuse me, it's like a precedent. I was wondering if your country, like France, has declarations and reservations where they say, we don't care. We don't care what the CRPD says. We don't want to comply with Article 14 and 15. And even if the committee will tell them, we want you to lift these reservations.
Our country didn't, the committee was telling to our committee, was asking to not adhere to the additional protocol of Oviedo. And the committee, the state didn't respond. So we don't know if it is going to adhere to that protocol that vulnerates CRPD. And what we find also is, for example, in the government of our region, Catalonia, because in Spain, different parts of Spain have competencies on health and on mental health. We are in a process that has taken for now 1 year, and with meetings every month, to do a strategy to implement anticipated decision making in mental health. And in that process, they don't recognize the convention, and taking that this subject all the time, they don't recognize it. They say that they are critical to the conventions, so they didn't recognize at all. And they are using PDA, anticipated decision making, to reinforce involuntary commitment and involuntary treatment. So we are thinking and trying to
maybe we have to go again to the CRPD
and say
exactly to say that.
But we are now trying to say to see how they move. We are making our reportations. We are saying that it could be used in that way, that it doesn't respect human rights, that everything. So, and we might make it publicly. So if they don't respond,
yes, Bea stopped the process. Without Bea, that was a problem.
Yeah, it is not approved. There is not a process of consensus at all. There is, so we'll see. We'll see. We are trying. I will try to call to the secretarian that from the Department of Health next week about the difficulties of consensus in there, because we'll see if we find a way, but it will be difficult because the bioethical committee from the Department of Health, what's supposed to be independent and what's supposed to give advice to the Department of Health, is so biological and paternalistic. They were defending involuntary treatment in your house just a few time ago, and okay, this is another process that in which we need to use that. But they don't accept it at all. They are like, no, there's not. But we are thinking to bring this situation to the committee or to European mental health committee that someone tell us that was supportive, to make a letter for them to say, what, you don't recognize the convention? So, but we don't know yet how to do it.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you don't have any questions, so maybe Tina can continue.
I guess I'd like to invite, if anyone has any situations of what they're dealing with in their own country that they want to bring up, and Bea and Hernán or I could try and comment on what you are struggling with in relation to preparing for this list of issues or country process. If anyone has, and we've had a couple of questions already about country situations, but if there's anything more. And I see, Mohammed, you've been writing a lot of very specific things about what you're finding, what are you have criticisms of the state party report, and I don't know if there's any kind of question that you want to address. I think it might be hard to address all of these specific things where we don't really have the knowledge about it, and maybe if you could do a collective process in as they did in drafting a report. If these are things you want to put in the report, then you could get people's specific comments if you want to invite maybe Bea and Hernán. I don't know if you would be willing to also help as expert guides if you were invited. I know you're both very busy, but that's something that people could also think about.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, of course, if we can.
If we can do it,
Pleasure.
of course.
Yes.
We maybe cannot writing, and we don't know the law of each country, but maybe we can say this is a vulneration of this right, or maybe from our experience, or what laws stand that we can make
Or
comments.
Yes, or explain better the process, no? Well,
Yeah.
how we did it, the tools we use it, or I don't know, maybe how was that process, the participative process.
Yeah, or comment.
That would be very useful for us in France. I think that's a good example for us. Mohammed was also criticizing with the regional health authorities, like you in Spain. It's the same thing. Biological, biomedical approach, paternalistic, same thing. I'm not sure you understood my question before about the declarations and reservations that states can make when they sign the CRPD in the beginning. So France says, France says, forget it, we don't care. We said we would not comply with Article 14, Article 15. So I know the committee will say, please lift your reservations. Please implement all of the articles. And I guess the only thing we can do is go on our basis of all full implementation and just keep putting up with France's excuse. I don't know. In your case, if that's an issue or not. And there's already contradictions, as you said, with Oviedo, with the European side and the UN side. And I met with the permanent representative from the Council of Europe, from Spain, who, thanks to our campaigning, found out about this conflict. And he was very interested, but I'm very disappointed that Spain did not agree to drop the draft protocol after being heard by the committee. And I'm very happy the committee will tell every country to drop this draft. That's at least that.
We don't know if there were like reservations when signing the CRPD, so we didn't know about that. But I think no, maybe we would know. I don't know. It's something new for us.
I don't think that Spain made any reservations or declarations. If there were, they would have come up in the review, and I'm pretty sure Spain didn't. Most countries actually didn't make any reservations. So I think that is something that kind of is an additional challenge that you have to work with. And you know, for me speaking from the United States, my country hasn't even ratified the convention, and I'm way behind. So, you know, I can sympathize with any kind of frustration about it. But one thing that I think is good news for you. Your country rapporteur for France is Jonas Rust,
Yes, yes.
and you know he is one of he was one of the country rapporteurs for Spain who did such great work. Took advantage of the report that ActivaMent brought them, and you know I think that shows what can actually be done in a report in that kind of a process. And he is someone who's been very publicly willing to be a champion on our issues. And for Mexico, we have Mr. Sheffer and Ms. Kayes. I don't know if either of them speak Spanish. I don't know if you know, but I would hope that they do. I think Amalia Gamio is the only committee member right now from any Spanish-speaking country, and she, of course, is from Mexico, so she can't participate in the review. In case anyone might have might need clarification on this, it's the committee member from a particular country cannot participate in the review of their own country. They take no part in the review. They can't be a country rapporteur. They can't even be in the room when the dialogue is being conducted. So I think it's just worth knowing who are the rapporteurs for your country and at least making some connection with them to start a conversation. And I'd be happy to talk with people individually if you want about perceptions of how the different committee members are approaching things. Rosemary Kayes, of course, was the other committee member who was involved in the review of Spain, and I don't think she's as knowledgeable about our issues, but she's, you know, she did participate and was very respectful and interested in what Bea and Hernán were bringing. So I think that's definitely a good sign. And Mr. Sheffer is pretty new, so we haven't seen a lot yet. And well, Ms. Kayes is new also, but we know her from previous interactions before she was a committee member. For Japan, you have Mi-Yun Kim, Ms. Kim, and Mr. Buntan, Montian Buntan, and Ms. Kim has also been an ally of our movement in her own country, so and comes from DPOs. So I think she is also someone who it's safe to say is certainly going to be completely open and receptive to what we can bring her. And I really appreciated the description that Hernán gave about how it's easy to approach the committee members. They're mainly people with disabilities themselves, and they're very respectful, and it can be a very just open and you know, trusting in a way conversation. I say trusting in a sense that of respectful, you know, just mutually respectful and interested and being open to what you're saying. I think you can attach, I don't know if you can attach documents there. I don't see a space to attach documents. Bea is asking if there's a document you want to send, maybe you can send it by email. And again, Mohammed, I see you commenting about what's mentioned in the report and the issue of poverty. Most people under forced psychiatry are poor. Let's talk about what you can do if you want to bring out that point. What's the significance of that connection? Do you want to just flesh that out a little bit, and maybe Bea and Hernán could give some comments? Is that an issue? Should we have a kind of, like test case discussion if you want to talk about the issue of poverty and how it relates to forced psychiatric treatment, and get some input. And I know it's difficult for you with the English, Mohammed, also. But maybe Bea and Hernán could comment, like, how would you approach that if people are wanting to bring out this issue?
I could say that it is very important to bring it up and give the data that you have on that intersection between being involuntary treated and poverty, and also look at that through a gender perspective, because it used to be women also the poorest, because there are when you read the final observations to Spain, we didn't bring that the thing of poverty clearly, but in the observations, in the final observations to Spain, it is linked to women, because women also has less opportunities to work usually, and the economical dependence. So if you have data on that, I think it's very important to
Yes, exactly. It's really important if you can do it to put intersectional factors of that affect us. Yes, as gender, as poverty, social class, or maybe racialization or something like that. If you have that data to include it, it's perfect.
Yeah. And also the committee, the observations that he makes to Spain, in a lot of them, they adopt an intersectional position about all that different, or they are the same system, no? But specific oppressions that you can experience for different factors, no, gender, class, and how intersect class with the specific the ableism. No, we could talk about ableism or mentalism.
We have to leave. Yes, I want to say I apologize myself because I have to leave this conversation, because today start an international theater festival in Barcelona, and I collaborate with the organization, and I have to go there. Thank you very much to listen us. Bea continues here.
Thank you so much, Hernán, for joining us. Thank you.
No?
So we've actually gone past 2 hours, and I don't know if people have more questions or issues that they want to bring up. There's a document that she will send me, and I will send it to everyone by email. So I don't know if there are more questions, comments.
We will send you all the documents we use for our, like the discourse, the report, the summary of the report, the woman report. So maybe it is useful. So we will send all the documentation to Tina, and maybe you can, if you have the emails of the people, so
Yeah.
you can have the books. Maybe they are useful for something.
Yeah, that's great. And you can send whatever you have in Spanish and whatever you have also in English translation, and we can have both, because, yeah, that will be really good. So thank you so much to Bea and to Hernán, who has left. This has been really wonderful. It's been a great experience from the beginning, collaborating with you and just witnessing what you've been able to do and how you've been able to use this process and keep using the process even now. What you've been working on this past week, as in this case, it's incredibly impressive to me that a judicial process is requesting the intervention of ActivaMent, that you already have this kind of profile as experts in your country, that a judicial process would consult you, and that you're in a position to take advantage of, to actually work on. No, it's
They
not like
didn't consult us.
they
They
didn't.
didn't consult.
Ah,
We put that without any consultation, but
okay.
a lot of people adhere to that document, so it is being like very. It has a lot of support now, but they didn't consult us. We make it like spontaneously.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying. I think in any case that, I mean, I guess we don't have that kind of process available in our cases to be able to do that. But um, I just think that the work that you're doing really is a great example and a great model in many respects, including this work on the parallel report, the shadow reporting. And I'm really happy to have been able to introduce you to this group of activists who are here, and that we can make available to more people when we post the recording. And hopefully it's other people will be able to use these lessons and apply them in the context of their own country. So I think, for if you're someone who's in this call but you're not yet in the absolute prohibition email group and you'd like to join, please talk to me about that and I'll add you to the list. Bea and Hernán are in that email group, and I think they're welcome. They invite that you can contact them separately also, if you wish. Everyone is very busy, but we can always reach out and try to collaborate or ask advice. So I guess we're going to close. Good luck to everyone. Please feel free to be in touch with me. And I did send out all of the information about who are the country rapporteurs. That's something that you might follow up on if you haven't done so already, and also to get emails from other committee members to have private meetings. It looks to me like some of the committee members include their emails in their CVs that are posted on the website, but some of them don't. So some of those are just available. You can go to the committee's website. But I mean, I don't know if there's another place where they're all posted. I don't know about it. So I didn't know if there was anything else. But but I can also help to facilitate contacts if you want that kind of facilitation too. And I'll leave you with that. And thanks.
Thank you so much, Tina. Thank you so much, because it makes us so much stronger being together and hearing from each other. Maybe it will be possible with Japan. I thought Mary was with us for a little while.
She was,
but
I believe, because it's very late in Japan.
Yeah, or with Mexico and France being there at the same time, we can at least meet, I hope, and get more strength, and maybe, who knows, organize something if we have financing or together, or maybe in March, next March at the next session, depending who is there and when it is. That would be so wonderful. I think working together proves to the committee that we have the same problems in many countries, and it reinforces our messages.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. And, you know, I don't know if logistically it might be difficult to do a side event or thematic briefings. The same thing, side event, thematic briefing in this session, if you're coming there mainly for the last week, for that week of the pre-session. But certainly, you know, it's something you can all talk about, and I would love to be part of those conversations. I'm planning to be there and to be available if anybody needs or wants some support in relation to those meetings. So yeah, okay. And it really is good to think about doing things together and planning something also possibly for the spring. So thanks again to everyone, and we will try to close the meeting and see you online. First saving the chat log. Okay. Bye. Adios, everyone.